We're live
Yes,
now.
thank you.
Good evening, all. Welcome to the 32nd session of the CENTA webinar series for teachers. Today, we are going to focus on metacognition and 10 strategies that teachers can adopt to ensure better learning outcomes during remote learning. So, a very pertinent topic. And we have with us two very senior, very well respected leaders from the education space. On your popular demand, we've brought them back, Ms. Meenal Srinivasan and Professor Mohan Garimella. Welcome, Meenal ji. Welcome, Professor.
Thank
So
you.
good to have you back with us. Um, and for those of you who have been attending our webinar series regularly, you would remember that we had a session with Meenal and Ram sir. I think it was 3 weeks back on formative assessments in the context of National Education Policy 2020. And all of you just loved the session, so we just had to get both of them back, and here we are. A quick introduction. Meenal is the CEO and Managing Trustee of Educo. She is an ICWA intermediate and holds an MBA in finance from Clark University, Massachusetts. She founded Educo in 2009 with the dream of ensuring prosperity of the underprivileged by providing them with free, of cost, quality education. She works closely with the Department of Education at Municipal Corporation of Greater Mumbai, and she consults them on teacher training and various policy-related matters. She is also on the Education Committee of Mumbai First. Welcome, Nima.
Thank you. It's a
Uh,
pleasure to be back here again.
Absolutely. And Professor Mohan Garimella is the Pedagogy Director at Educo Saibaba Path MPS. He brings a rich experience of more than 3 decades in education to Educo. He has had a long career in teacher training. He's published books for science for UNICEF. And after a long and illustrious career in the Royal University of Bhutan, Professor Mohan became the lead trainer for Save the Children India for 3 years. At Save the Children India, he was involved in the School Excellence Program at Municipal Corporation of Greater Mumbai. He joined Educo in 2016, and his intention is to move the learning indicators at Saibaba Path branch of Educo, where he works, by a significant factor. He has a BSc, a B.Ed honors, as well as an M.Ed. As I said, Ram sir and Meenal, wonderful to have you with us today. And I'm sure all of us are really excited, as we were a few weeks back, to explore the new world of metacognition. It's new for some of us, at least it's new for me. And over the next course of over the course of the next hour or so, and see what it means, and how it can be leveraged. Just a minor point before we start. The Some of you have questions about the feedback form. It's going to be available at two places today. From today onwards, we're going to share that in the chat section, and we're also going to put it up on my center. So the same place that you used to register for the session, it's going to be available there. So the banner would be live at 5:45. You click on the banner, you'll see the feedback form, and you need to fill that up by 9 p.m. today, so that we can send across your acknowledgement record to you via email by noon tomorrow. Yeah, that's my bit. So I'm just gonna also a shout out to Sachin from the Educo team. You can't see Sachin, but Sachin is there in the background. He's helping us with the slides. So a shout out to him. And yeah, that's that from me. And I'm just gonna take leave and leave it to you, Meenal ji and Ram Mohan sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for such a warm welcome, and also the welcome in the chat box. It's definitely a pleasure. We are admirers of CENTA ourselves, so it's a huge honor and a privilege to be on your platform. Professor Mohan is going to share his pedagogy knowledge, and our effort is always to make sure that our training session motivates you to execute the science of learning, which is what is pedagogy, in your classroom as early as tomorrow morning. So we try and work on the presentation so that you of pedagogy and the theoretical base, but also practical ways in which you can execute it in your classroom. So we worked very hard on this presentation, and I hope it is useful and productive, and look forward to a great session. So over to Prof. Mohan.
Thank you, Karthik, for all those nice words. Thank you, ma'am. And I want to start with Namaskar, Assalamu alaikum, Sat Sri Akal, and a great evening to all of you. So let's get into this. Let's get into the third slide, maybe, like second slide and third slide. Please, next one. See, as the slide shows, this is the post-pandemic. You find that the new normal is more learning. But because of new normal, certain situations are good. The teachers have become very competent in ICT. Certain times, students also have become very nice in computers and various use of electronic devices. But then there is one problem that you find that in the first category, there are so many students who have got everything with them. And second category, you find that there are some students who have got smartphones. And in the third category, you find students who have got only some ordinary phones. And in the fourth category, probably they don't have a phone. They'll have to borrow a phone from someone else. So this is the situation. In the situation, is it possible for all of us the e-learning perfectly? That is the million-dollar question. Can we do it? If not, then what are the alternatives? Now let's look into the next slide.
So a very quick poll on the Mentimeter. We want to understand the audience, and we are very mindful that every child will not have a smart device, have unlimited data. There may be many government teachers who may be watching this session, and we know the challenges, and we are trying to tailor the training. So can you please type www.menti.com, use the code 2948429 and answer the poll, please. So as Professor Mohan explained, third and fourth category students would not be having a smartphone. If they do have a phone, it could be belonging to a family member. So there's limited access to a device, there's limited access to data. So can we get an understanding how many of your students would be in this category? Maybe there could be a one or two. Thank you. About 10%. Oh, 50%. So we do understand as teachers is very crucial for you. Even if 10% of your students don't have access to a device, I know as a teacher you feel that you must reach every child and that child must be connected and must be learning. That is what a teacher is looking out for, and we have tried to focus on this session so that every child can learn irrespective of whether they have a device or not.
Yes. Can we go to the next slide, please?
Yeah, so the poll says that about 10% of the students may or may not, but every child is important.
So what is one answer? I mean, that is very important for all of us to think about it. You know, is it possible for us to make all the children to learn independently? And if we want to do that, the only answer is metacognition. What is metacognition? I'll be explaining in the next slide. Let's go to the next one. See, metacognition is cognition about cognition, or thinking about thinking, or knowing about knowing. Slightly confusing, isn't it? But what it says is, like, can we have some kind of control on our thinking? You know, we might be thinking, but we may not have any kind of control. Cognition is something which is, we get all activities of the brain. You know, like it may be memorizing, it may be problem solving, it may be explaining. All those activities, we call it as cognitive activities. But then when we call it as metacognition is little beyond cognition. So that is, we call it as we having some kind of control, some active control on the cognition is metacognition. We will see what is this process, how is the scientific process be operated, and how can we inculcate this among the students. That is what we will see in the next few slides. See, metacognition is a scientific process, and what is important is it has got two dimensions. One is awareness, the other one is regulation. Let us see what is awareness. Next. See, in the awareness, we have got awareness of knowledge, awareness of task, and awareness of strategy. Awareness of knowledge means like that you got the child in the syllabus, there are so many topics, and then he must be knowing what are some of the topics on which he has got the complete control, what are some of the topics which he doesn't know, what are some of the topics he doesn't at all know, and then what should be done for that. That is the awareness of task, and what strategies should be applied so that he can learn those topics, and that is awareness of strategy. Now let's go a little more into details about awareness of knowledge.
Okay, so we also want to have an understanding of your understanding of metacognition. Are you aware of metacognition as a practice? Would love to hear from you so that we know where we stand in the session. Okay, great. I'm also seeing the comments in the chat box. So a lot of no's also coming in the chat box. Okay, I think it's about 50-50, sir.
50.
So we can move.
Yes, it is 50-50.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we also thank you for your questions. And Neha Opal says that has asked, can metacognition be taught? Anjana Parab is saying how metacognition boosts learning, thinking skills, how to explain metacognition to students. Masuma is saying, how to develop metacognition in the classroom. Indu Lakshmi is saying how metacognition skills will enhance the teaching learning. Next page, please. And what are the approaches of metacognition in mathematics? Dr. Maya Nair is asking how to infuse analytical thinking, how to introduce and connect relevant related concepts for discussion during online classes while implementing the scaffolding technique. So thank you for your questions in advance. We've incorporated them in the presentation. Yeah, next slide, please. This slide will come in the end. So these are all the questions that had come in.
All right. Now let's think about the awareness of knowledge. Awareness of knowledge, as you know, like here I've given an example about a student called Sohail. Like he knows that I'm good in arithmetic but weak in algebra. It could be I'm good in chemistry, I'm bad in biology. Or I know about a periodic table, but I know nothing about chemical reactions. I know about chemical reactions, I do not know how to balance the chemical reactions. It could be anything, like what you know and what you do not know. Both the things consist of this awareness of knowledge. All right, awareness of knowledge means what I know, and then you should be also knowing what you do not know, in the syllabus. Now let's go to the next one. Awareness of task. In the awareness of task, what you try to find out is like, these are the topics I do not know. What should I do so that I can, get or I can learn these topics? So that is what he's talking here about. Like I can procure more worksheets from friends and teachers, and then on algebra I can practice more, and that is how I can become better in algebra. And the teacher has to find out like what is his problem, what is exactly his problem, why is he weak in algebra. For example, she knows very well that this fellow is not able to convert the algebraic equations into mathematical equations or English sentences. Say, for example, x plus y is equal to z. What means like I walked 3 kilometers, then I walked 4 kilometers, and in total it is 7 kilometers. But he's not able to translate. So that is his problem. So awareness of task, the teacher has to help the student to become, more proficient in his weaknesses to overcome those weaknesses. Next. Next. So next one is awareness strategy, as we are talking about. So in the awareness of strategy, he's finding out like what kind of strategy should I apply? Like practice makes a person perfect. Can I go on practicing it? Or is it possible for me like to think, understand and reflect? This is a metacognitive strategy. So can he apply this metacognitive strategy? So the work of the teacher will be here to guide the student to find out like what strategies are applicable as per his topics or as per his weaknesses. What strategies can he apply so that he can overcome his weaknesses and he can become a much better learner. Next. So we are now coming to the metacognition phase 2, that is the regulation. Next. See, in the regulation means actually control. In this, what you have got is planning, monitoring, and evaluation. But what is more important is in all these aspects, you have got reflection. You need to reflect in every stage. You reflect in planning, you need to reflect in monitoring, and you have to reflect even in evaluating. Next. Planning. So here he is thinking about what is included in the planning. It is a kind of time target, like I'll complete factorization in the month of June. I'll have simple and simultaneous equations in the month of July, because that is what he's thinking about. He's weak in algebra. How can he overcome, and what should he be doing in every month so that he can improve his algebraic knowledge? And then he's reflecting and thinking that last year I did not go as per my plan, so I had suffered quite a lot. So this year at least I should not be having the same problem. And then the teacher should be helping the students to make different types of monthly plans or topic plans or weekly plans. And then she should be also grouping the students as per their weaknesses and then help them to make proper plans. Next. Then monitoring. In the monitoring, what you do is whether are you going as per the plan or not. You know, like am I successful in completing what I planned? That is what has to be checked, and that is what you do in monitoring. And if it is not going properly, then you again try to find out like what has gone wrong. So how can I improve upon it? That is what is seen. And then in the reflection, you see that, okay, what problems did I face when I did not complete the task in time last time? How did I have a kind of backlog at the time of examination? And then because of that backlog, I could not do anything properly. So that is the reflection he is having in his mind. And then the teacher has to see that everyone is going as per their plan. And sometimes what happens, the students tell lies. They say that, yes, we are moving as per the plan. So that is why she needs to collect some kind of evidence so that, you know, she is sure that everyone is completing the task in time. Next. Can we go to the next one?
So I think maybe it's frozen. Just a minute.
Yes, it's got now.
Sachin, are you having a problem?
It's all right now, ma'am. The evaluation, like in the evaluation, he tries to find out. First thing is he wanted to have 80% in his examination, and he wants to find out whether he is able to get that 80% in the examination. So he has to appear for various types of tests, various types of formative tests, and then different types of examinations which are conducted by the teacher or by the parents or by the friends. All right, and then he should see that in the reflection he's trying to find out that I have done quite well in some of the topics, but I'm not able to do well in some other topics. What is the reason behind it? And then the teacher should see that different students are weak in different topics, so she has to make different kinds of test papers, and then the test papers are to be given to the students as per their weaknesses. Next. let's go to the next. This is next, Sachin.
Yes, I think there's some data problem.
Yes.
There are a lot of questions whether metacognition can be done for primary children. So, sir, could you answer that?
One by one, can we ask these questions, ma'am? Will you have those questions here? No. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you like?
So while we were waiting, these questions were coming up.
Right. So, like metacognition, as you know, like when we summarize the whole metacognition, we have got two things. One is awareness and one is regulation. Awareness means what you know and what type of what are the various things you want to know. One is the knowledge, the second one is the task, the third one is the strategies. And what about the regulation? In the regulation, you need planning and reflection, monitoring and reflection, and evaluation and reflection. Now let us go for an action plan next. Next. Okay, so this is something like you can start tomorrow itself. I don't know how well you can start with, because the way you are having, the type of contact you are having with the students, but with whomever you are having the contact with, you can start this immediately and then see that this is being implemented immediately. So the inculcation, what I'm talking about is the inculcation of metacognition or the internalization of metacognition. You know, so what will be the first thing is whatever topics have been completed now, through whatever means you have completed, you know, in that you have to see that you are dividing that topic into subtopics and terms. That is your main task, the teachers. The teacher's task will be to divide the topic into subtopics and terms. And then the students find out what are some of the subtopics which they know and what are some of the terms which they know. And then they will go on a particular process to find out how can they know about these subtopics and how can they find more information about these terms. Next. Yes. So in the awareness of knowledge, that is what the teacher's main work is, to take the topic and then see that he is breaking it into subtopics and terms. Next. So the awareness of task here, the student will then have to know that these are the subtopics I do not know. So how will I get more information about these subtopics? It could be from the books, it could be from the worksheets, it could be by making various things like scrapbooks or games, you know, all these things be done, and then he can gain knowledge on this. See, what is more important over here, the teacher should not be spoon feeding them with information. You should be allowing the students to think on their own. Allow students to think and take their own decisions. Guide like a facilitator. Don't become a dictator. So that is very, very important, that you are only a facilitator and you are not controlling the whole process. You give as much of freedom as possible for the students. Even if they want to make mistakes, don't worry about it. And then if they want to take risks, please see that you are encouraging them. Next. Next one, awareness of strategy. So here, what are the different kinds of strategies that could be taken? Like, for example, it could be peer learning, it could be think, pair, and share, it could be cooperative learning, it could be games and simulations. Any kind of strategy can be taken. And then they can also explain how to carry out these strategies to the students. That will be the role of the teacher. The teacher has to explain, like, what are the correct strategies for the correct topics. These are the topics. For this, you need to use these kind of strategies. And do not, again, we are trying to emphasize that do not spoon feed the students. Allow the students to think themselves and find out what are the strategies which are important. And then they can select those strategies and implement. Next. Metacognition phase 2, now we are coming in the regulation. In the regulation phase, what should be done? Right. Next. See, in the regulation phase, as we said about planning, so here he is trying to think about, like, if these are the subtopics which I'm not able to pick up. So here he's trying to make a topic plan. So how many days will it take for each subtopic, and how many days will it take to pick up each term? That kind of planning he's making over here. All right. And then he's reflecting back and thinking like how it is different from the normal weekly planning or normal monthly planning, and how can I make this particular plan more successful. Then role of the teacher will be explain how a topic plan is prepared, and then she will guide different students to make topic plan or a weekly plan or a monthly plan. So the next. So the next one is monitoring. In the monitoring, you try to find out like what should I do next, and then have I completed all the topics in time. If I'm not completed, then what else could be done, or what kind of strategies can I change if required. All right. And then the reflection, he's thinking about like if I'm not able to complete in time last year, it so happened, and then what are the various problems I faced. At least this year, I don't want to face that. And then the role of the teacher will be, she will try to find out whether all the students are making proper plans, and then are they able to complete it, and then she will try to collect some kind of evidence about their completion. Next. The next one is evaluation. So after you find out like, the student has made these subtopics and then these terms, so he will try to take up some kind of test and then find out whether he is able to learn all those things properly or not. So the teacher's role will be to help him to, somehow appear for some kind of test, guide him from where he can get different kinds of test papers, from where can he get different types of sample papers, and then appear for those honestly, and then see how well he has done. In a similar way, the reflection will be like he will be thinking about like I wanted to get this many marks. If I'm not getting it, what should be done? What can I do so that I can really get to the target? Next.
So we have another Mentimeter poll here. And sir has very well explained very well your role as a teacher, but we would like to hear your opinion. In metacognition, how do you see yourself? So please type a word that would define your role as a teacher in the metacognition process. Okay, so I'm seeing it in the chat box also. Facilitator, yes. Great.
Great.
Yes, planning. Yeah, skill builder. I think that's a great new word. Collaborator. Be a guide, of course. Mentor. To provide resources, learner-centered teaching, questioning, reflecting is a very important quality for metacognition. Coach, yes. Co-learner, that's a new one. Arrive at own answers, yes.
That's very good.
Partner, yeah. So these are impressive words. Partner.
Wonderful words.
Yeah, reinforcement, true. You have to reinforce. Aware, yes. You need a high, and empathy. That is a great word too. Empathy is
You
seeing
need to
shoulder
have
to
the
shoulder
empathy.
with your student. Yes. Facilitator. The chat box is also coming up with a lot of questions. Planning and creative execution, yes. It does require effort from your end, but once you make that effort and it goes on autopilot, you will see the impact of metacognition. Great, thank you.
Wonderful. We have here the metacognitive educationists. They always think about four types of metacognitive learners. Can we go to the next slide, please? They are tacit learners, aware learners, strategic learners, and reflective learners. I would like to explain you this with an example, which is very common. We see it in our schools in the math classes. For example, there are, like normally what we do in a math class is the teacher gives solves first of all some problems, and then she will give one more problem or two, three problems, and then she will ask the students to solve those problems. And while they are solving, still that there is no much time, so she will go to the blackboard and then she will start solving the problems. So there are some students who would wait for that chance, and then they will be always looking forward. As soon as the teacher starts solving them on the chalkboard, these people will start copying them blindly. They are of course thinking while copying, but then what happens is they are not really learning about that particular problem. So that group of learners, we call them as the tacit learners. And who are the aware learners? Aware learners are thinking about what the teacher is doing. They're understanding what the teacher is solving, what are the various steps, and then they will copy it. They will understand each step and then they will copy it. The strategic learners are those learners who have already solved some of the problems, and then they will be thinking about if these are not the strategies, can we have some other strategies, and then apply and solve these problems. And when you are thinking about the reflective learners are those who are thinking like last year in the examination, it so happened that I was trying to solve all the problems, but because I did not know how to do the shortcut way, and our teacher has done only the long way of doing the problems, so I did not get sufficient time, and as a reason, my results suffered. So these are the four types of learners whom you find, like one are tacit, aware, strategic, and reflective learners. Can we go to the next? The same thing has been explained even in the next slide. Now fourth, yeah, Mentimeter.
So it's very important to understand how many of your learners would be tacit learners, because you have to work on them so that they move up that ladder of learning. So, okay, so one person saying 75% of the learners are tacit learner and one person is saying 25%. So let's see if we get an understanding from these charts. And hopefully a minimum of your learners should be tacit learners. So we are clear about this poll. How many of your learners are tacit learners? Percentage of your class who are just copying from the board without thinking.
Please think in terms of converting these tacit learners into reflective learners. That is the hard work you have to do. So tacit learners are there, aware learners are there, strategic learners are there, and reflective learners are there. At least at the beginning, you should think in terms of making the tacit learner into an aware learner, and an aware learner into a strategic learner, and a strategic learner, of course, to convert into a reflective learner. But then our goal should be that in your class, everyone become a reflective learner. Then you have achieved the 100%
So the
in
goal,
metacognition.
yeah. So the goal would be, sir, that there'll be 0% tacit learners, right?
Yes, at least that 0% tacit learners and more of strategic learners and reflective learners, and maybe some percentage of aware learners. Okay, next. So now we'll do the 10 metacognitive strategies. The first and the foremost, can we go to the next one? See, here I'm talking about a gradual release approach with scaffolding. Here I'm talking about Lev Vygotsky's, who actually did the zone of proximal development. You know, his theory, like where he says, like, can we go to the next slide? That is more interesting. See, here we can find that there are 3 stages for a learning. One is learner cannot do, learner can do, and then in between is a region where learner can do with some kind of support. All right. So this is what you find, that learner cannot do something, learner can do something, and then in between you will always find that learner can do with some kind of support. That support, Vygotsky called it as scaffolding. So with some kind of scaffolding, like the scaffolds we use in the buildings, you know, so that kind of support which we use in the buildings, we can make the different students go up in the ladder. You know, like that is what you have to see, that everyone is moving to the next level. So Vygotsky says that everyone knows, like even a baby knows that when she's born with some knowledge. She knows that if I cry, then I'll get the milk, or if I cry, my napkins will be changed. So if it's some kind of support, even that baby also changes into the, comes to the next level, and that is what we see in the growth and development. All right. So this is how, like, even in our curriculum, we find that it is a spiral curriculum, and in spiral curriculum, you see that there are different levels, and from one level, one has to move to the next level. All right. So your work will be to gradually take the student up to that level and leave him there, and then that becomes the, you know, first level now, and then he will move to the next level with some kind of support. Yes, next.
So Professor Mohan, you are saying that it's very important for the teacher to know the middle circle where the student stands to plan the
Yes.
scaffolding.
Yes. I mean, normally in our curriculum, now what happens, the curriculum is very, very spiral. So we should be finding out, like, what are the levels they have reached. Now, especially because of this no detention policy, you find that many of the children have actually missed out some of the levels in between. So it made me very important to have a kind of pre-test, you know, and find out whether they have reached up to that level or not, and then take them to that particular level. Whatever levels are missing in between, you should be doing some kind of scaffolding and then make them to reach to that particular level. Have I answered your question, ma'am?
Yes, sir. And I think the next strategy is takes it forward about creating the goals.
Yes, the SMART goals. Like here, what we are saying is, like in your lesson plan, you normally make these SMART goals. The teacher makes it. But why should it not be a student? Student says that at the end of this lesson, or at the end of this week, at the end of this topic, I will be learning these things. And they should be in terms of SMART. That is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. Let's go to the next one. Next slide. See, here I have given an example of the student making the plan. There he says, I will be, you know, by the end of the lesson, I will be able to draw a label diagram, or I will be able to define the term absorption. I've taken this example from that action plan. State the function of a stem, or even he can have a higher level question, thinking that justify what would have happened if the structure of the stem and the root were same. All right. So this kind of thinking should be there in the student, so that he can really become a metacognitive skilled student.
So,
right?
and this
So
example also demonstrates. So this example would also demonstrate that you don't need a device. If you communicate on a voice note, this should be your smart goal for for this chapter, and the child has a textbook. They can, or a reference book, they can do this exercise very easily. So this can also be possible if there is no synchronous learning.
Yes, no computers are required for this. No smart mobiles are required for this. No mobiles are required. In fact, no laptops are required. Nothing is required. What you require is a wise head on your shoulders. That is very important. Okay, next. So this one is differentiate the known from unknown. As I was talking to you about at the very beginning, that the student should be aware of, like in any kind of topic, any kind of syllabus, in any kind of chapter, he should know what are the aspects I know and what are the aspects I do not know. And if these are the aspects I don't know, then what should be done? So then the whole planning goes again, like the whole awareness planning, and then the whole regulation planning will go, and then he will try to find out the way. And you should be, again, as you said, you should be working only as a facilitator or a guide. Don't try to impose too many things on the student. Let's go to the next slide. That will demonstrate better. This can be done much better with a self-assessment, like asking questions to yourself, finding out like what are the topics which I know, what are the topics which I do not know, what should I do, what kind of strategies should I apply, what kind of evaluation procedures should I take. All these things should be asked by the student, and then answers. He should answer those questions. He should be asking to himself, and he should be answering. And that is the best type of reflective practice what we can cultivate among the students. Next slide.
So just to share with you, you're getting many compliments from the teachers and they're really enjoying the session. I know you're very engrossed and you can't enjoy all the compliments that are coming on the chat, but your audience is
Thank you,
enjoying
ma'am.
your session.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, audience. So here what we are talking about is what is knowing is discovering. Discovering what are the topics I know, discovering what are the topics I do not know, what should be done, and what strategies can I take up. That is what we call it as discover. And then then you should have a kind of vision. What am I aiming for? That is the second D, discover and then dream. So you are dreaming or you are visioning. You are trying to find out where should I reach. And the third one is design. To get to that dream or to achieve that particular dream, you need to design certain things. You have to design certain procedures. And then those procedures have to be delivered. Then only your whole cycle will be completed. So that is what we call it as 4 Ds: discover, dream, design, and deliver. Next. So that is what again explained in simple terms, like what is needed and whatever I need for that, what should be done. So that is in 2 simple circles we have tried to explain the 4 Ds. Next. See, choosing the appropriate strategy, that is always very, very important. Like for example, here I've given a simple example. Somebody wants to learn a language because he is going to go to a different country. And then like he knows that the courses which are there around are 12 months. So this is not possible for him. He has to learn within 6 months. So what should he be doing it? What type of strategies should he be adopting? Like for example, I find other ways to meet this goal. I will find out if there is an accelerated language class that I can take, or maybe I should consider additional reference to focus on learning the basics of the language, or I should think in terms of having some kind of system, or whereby I'll pick up only the basics and I will not go for the higher things. So these are the various strategies he might be thinking about. So he will think about these strategies, and then select the best strategy and then go along with that. Next. So for that also, again, as I said, he should be like planning, monitoring, evaluating or directing, and then he should be reflecting. That is what we said, like whenever we want to have a kind of control on our work, then these are the four things which have to be taken up. Next. So this is the simple worksheet which you can think about, like what are the things which I need to do, how can I do it, what should be done, and you can change this page into different forms. Like sometimes you think in terms of like what kind of strategy should I apply, what kind of evaluation should I take up, what kind of teaching aid shall I have to make, all these kind of things. Accordingly, you can write it down in the piece of paper. So this is given so that you can also make simple designs and then go for your appropriate strategy. Next. Design a learning plan. So it's always very important that you have a learning plan. The learning plan could be of different types. It could be a topic plan, it could be a weekly plan, it could be a monthly plan, or it could be a term plan. Any type of plan is okay, but you need to have a learning plan. Next, I have given a topic plan or a weekly plan in the next slide. You can see that. Please, let's go to the next one. So this is a weekly plan. So you have got different subjects on this side. This side again, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday you can have even Saturday and Sunday also. You can include as you want it. Next. Mentimeter question.
So if teachers will have used any of these strategies, can you share which of the strategies you have used in the classroom? We have 5 more strategies to go in about 15 minutes for the next part of metacognitive strategies. Would be great if you could share which are the ones you've been using. Yeah, all great. Designing a study plan. Yeah, differentiate the known from the unknown. In the chat box, we're getting jigsaw puzzles, scaffolding, planner. All okay. So we have 5 more coming up. Hopefully, you've been using all the 10. And so many compliments on your session as well in the chat box.
Thank you.
Accelerated learning, scaffolding, home study plans, great. Games, great. Thank you for all your wonderful responses.
And then we will be talking about the exit ticket. Exit tickets are normally done every day. This is considered to be the license for leaving the classroom. So before leaving the classroom, a student writes something, what did he learn, what he could not learn, and what could have been done so that some more things he could have learned, how could have been the methods or strategies could have been changed. So that also he mentions. But what we want is, because now that we are making weekly plans, topic plans, and monthly plans, so it is much better that if you can have an exit ticket for the whole week. Can we go to the next? So here I said exit ticket at the end of the week. Here you can think about like, what did you learn for the week? Identify the concepts and skills that you have learned. What are some of the concepts and skills that you could not learn? And what questions do you have at the end of the week? So these are the various kinds of things you can ask in the exit ticket, for the end of the week. So we are anyway doing it daily, but it is also important to have it for the week. Next. See, visualization is very important. You need to always have a kind of vision when you are thinking in terms of metacognition. Where should I reach? What is my ultimate target? What is my ultimate percentage which I can secure? Can I get 98.8%? These are the kind of visualizations which you should have. And then for that visualization, you can make a plan in a kind of chart paper and roll it and keep it with you, so that every day you can see that plan, and then you can again monitor whether you are going as per the plan or not. If you are not going, then you can make some changes and then see that those plans are again executed properly. So that is what is visualization. Next. Provide access to mentors. See, mentoring is a very important aspect, and what is more important about a mentor is mentor is a senior person, mentor should be trustworthy, and mentor has got better skills and knowledge. These are the three important qualities which a mentor should have. So once student selects a mentor having these qualities, then what happens? Automatically he is motivated to learn from him, and he learns very fast. And when a mentor teaches him, you'll find that the learning is much faster than what a teacher does. So I have shown some examples of mentors in the next slide. Let us see them. Please go to the next. See, like here, Gavaskar is the mentor for Tendulkar. Gandhiji was the mentor for Pandit Nehruji. Lord Sri Krishna was the mentor for Arjuna. And then even we can say that Pulla Gopichand is the mentor for Sindhu. So for the badminton player. So these are the, like various mentors who have actually done wonderful things and who are very, very prominent mentors. These are very prominent mentors. But then we can have, I just said, like with those three qualities included, we can have mentors from their senior students. And then you will find that the learning becomes much faster. And then they will teach them how to become metacognitive.
Sir, and even in this environment of remote learning, we can encourage students to find mentors in their neighborhood or in their extended family, and help them be a guide in these hard times when the children are not going to school.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Actually, that is the best thing to be done, and then those mentors can guide them properly in all aspects. So please, encourage your students to find some mentors in the nearby, locality, and then take lessons from them. Okay, now the ninth one is allow mistakes and reward risk taking. See, always we've been telling the children if they make mistakes, we shout at them, we scold them. That discourages them quite a lot. There is a theory which has come recently known as learned helplessness. Learned helplessness is because of this kind of behavior by the teacher, who is scolding them, who is very rude, or who says like, you can never learn maths. So ultimately the student can never learn maths, and he's actually learning to become helpless. So that is why we call it as learned helplessness. Instead of that, if you can encourage students to take some kind of risks, and I'm not saying that you should be encouraging the students to make mistakes, but even if they make mistakes, you should not be angry or you should not be upset, but then counsel them and then see that they are gradually improving, and then overcome their mistakes. That is much better than scolding or becoming very rude with them. So let's see what is the next slide. So this is what, like, is like the biggest risk is not taking any risk. So that is what, you should always allow the students to take some kind of risk and see that they are overcoming and doing something good because of that risk. And always the risk is rewarded. So that is how we should balance the risk and the reward. Next. And this is like incorporate project management. What we are talking about in this is like every topic plan or every weekly plan, convert that into a project. Once you convert that into a project, then the children will learn to complete in time. Children will learn to become more responsible. Children will learn on their own, because project is something which is always learned on their own. That is the most important characteristic of a project. And then they can do various kinds of like wonderful teaching aids, wonderful presentations, and wonderful interviews. All these things they will take up, and then they will present it before a crowd. That will increase their confidence, and then you'll find that will become great metacognitive learners. That's what I wanted to tell you. Next slide, please, which is probably the last one. This is what is the importance of metacognition? Like metacognition, as you know, like helps the students to become lifelong learners. It has been seen that even in pre-primary, the metacognition works. It has been experimented. And please take my word, and you can refer anywhere. Even in pre-primary, the metacognition can be practiced. We think that at lower classes it cannot be done. Of course, it has been, some people say that higher the age, the better the metacognition is. But even in the lower classes, you get metacognition. And all the ranges in all the subjects. Not at all expensive. And I don't require computers, we don't require laptops, we don't require mobiles, we require. Still, we can implement metacognition and make them independent learners. That is what is important. We can make them independent learners. And once they become independent learners, they will try to learn on their own. They'll try to find resources on their own. And then it provides intrinsic motivation. The motivation comes from inside. It is not because I will get a reward, that is why I want to do it. It will not be the case. But they will say that always I want to learn. That motivation comes from inside. And then students will become problem solvers. So these are the various advantages we have because of metacognition. So we need to practice metacognition. See, the 10 strategies, why we call them as metacognition is because these strategies help in making your cognition, to have a control on your cognition, to have a control on your learning, and then they will provide a direction to your learning. That is why these strategies are to be practiced, and that is why they are also known as metacognitive strategies. Next, I think the most important one, 6th Mentimeter.
So we hope that Professor Mohan demystified this big word for you and let it not just be a word, but based on the comments in the chat box, I believe that many of you all believe very strongly that you're actually doing it, it's possible. So this is actually a rhetorical question. And if you read between the lines, either you need to start tomorrow morning, maybe take some time, a week to think over it, or the last question is never, which means if you don't start tomorrow morning or next week, you're never going to do it. So it is basically in the mind. Again, you don't need a device, you don't need a smartphone, you don't need data, you need a connection with your student, you need to keep that communication, even over a phone line, over a voice note. You need to be a guide, you need to be a mentor. And I think that is the pinnacle of learning. If you make your child a self-learner and you be a guide and a facilitator, irrespective of whether you're in the classroom or you're teaching remotely, that I believe is the best way to guide your students.
Thank you, madam.
Okay,
I really
great.
like that word, pinnacle of learning. Yes, it is the pinnacle of learning.
Yes. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your wonderful compliments in the chat box. And Karthik, I think we can take a few questions. Exactly on 60 minutes,
Yeah.
we're done.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Meenal. Thanks a lot, Ram sir. And absolutely, I completely agree with, Meenal's sentiment that Ram sir did demystify this colossal looking word called metacognition. And all the teachers, there were 500 teachers live, and I'm sure all of us share the same sentiment. I have shared a few questions on chat,
For the private chat.
and maybe there's a few questions there, and then maybe we could look at that. It's 6 now. Maybe we can stretch it till 6:10, 6:15. In
Sure.
case there are more
Yeah.
questions.
So I think the last question we'll take, what are the limitations of this technique?
Yeah.
Sir, would you like to take a shot at it? What are the limitations of this technique?
I mean, I find that little negative. Actually, there should not be any kind of limitations once you have a determination. But then the limitation could be like sometimes the teachers do not have the knowledge. Now you are completely exposed what is metacognition. You should not find it difficult at any time. So there, I would say, I mean, I'm rather positive that there are no limitations in this because you don't require anything else. What you require is how to inculcate metacognition or how to internalize metacognition in the students. That knowledge is required. And if you don't have that knowledge, then everything is a limitation. But once you have this knowledge, then there is no limitation.
I think it's very important to be a good guide and not to confuse your learner. I think it's a sweet spot between giving that assurance to your student and keeping that connection with the student to ensure that when they feel a little bit insecure about their learning, that they reach out to you. So that bond between and that trust between the teacher and the student, if it is not very good, I think that could be a limitation to the technique because there would be a lot of confusion. Right, sir?
Yes, I mean, this is a very interesting question. Yes, thank you, ma'am. How would you teach a kid of 3 through metacognition? Actually, I had a similar question long time back, and it was for some other expert. This question was asked. And then he was telling me, like, see, if you can combine John Piaget and Vygotsky. Vygotsky talks about the scaffolding, and then Piaget talks about the different cognitive levels, the developmental levels. So if you can combine these two, then you'll find a way to even teach metacognition to a 3-year-old child. So that would be my answer. But you'll have to read quite a lot about Vygotsky, and you have to read about the various developmental stages of Piaget. Right?
Yes.
Answer that question? Take.
Yes, I think there's a lot that Piaget and Vygotsky talk about early childhood learning, and of course, it is based a lot on metacognition. I think Vijaya says, thank you, CENTA. As you mentioned, started with a new term and ended with a whole process to guide our kids. Okay, great. Yeah, we thank CENTA ourselves for giving us this platform to interact with you. So I thought that was a question.
No, that was Vijay ma'am typing out what all of us felt. So yeah,
okay. I think there were a lot of questions on metacognition for students with learning disabilities. And yes. I think that zone of proximal development, as Professor Mohan explained, for the teacher, it's very important to understand where that student is. So when the child has a learning disability, the teacher's grip on exactly where the student needs to go, that zone will change. So once the teacher is very able to identify where is your student with your special needs and where can I take the student, so that is the process that they can follow. I don't know if there's specific research on students with learning disabilities, and there was a question on a student with CWSN, but that was interesting, and maybe we can come back on that. Sir?
Yeah, I mean, it is like if a learning disability is physical disability, then there is absolutely no problem in internalizing or in inculcating metacognition. But if it is an intellectual disability, sometimes it might be, then maybe like we'll have to think about again and find out, diagnose it properly. And many of the intellectual abilities also can be sorted out. And then in fact, the students become much better, once they become metacognitive learners. So that is what has to be seen. But then it is definitely very, very, very much possible. If somebody has got a physical, problem, then definitely the metacognition can be applied very well, and then he could easily become a much better learner. So it is very important to find out. And the second one, as the ma'am was talking about, the level. As I said earlier, it is like, because of this no detention policy, nowadays we always find that the various levels in between are missing out. Although the curriculum is spiral, but then in the spring, that many of those levels are missing out. So we'll have to take always a pre-test to find out which level is he missing, or which level is she missing, and then address that particular level first. That is very important, and then otherwise what happens is you are skipping the phase every time, and then the children are not able to do anything. We found that even there are students who are of class 9 and they cannot do the multiplication problem of class 2 or 3 because they have skipped so many levels in between. So that is why you need to have always a pre-test and find out at what level they are, and that needs to be addressed immediately, and then go accordingly level by level and do some proper scaffolding.
There's a question, Sarita P. How to apply metacognition easily if the strength is more in the class? I think last time also in the formative, we had discussed about grouping your class into abilities, right?
Yes. I mean, I think strength should not be like you are not teaching here everyone on a chalkboard or trying to correct everything. Like this has to be done as we are talking about, like trying to create awareness. You are giving them at the end of the topic, as I said, that action plan that needs to be implemented. The action plan which I gave you should be implemented. At the end of the topic, you should find out what are the subtopics, what are the terms, and then the children will find out on their own what are those subtopics in which they are weak and what are those terms in which they are weak. And they will find out ways to overcome these weaknesses. So that will in fact help you much better, even if the strength is more. Okay?
Yeah. Do we have any more questions, Karthik? I think one important question that came up is, how do you make an introverted child interactive? I think first you have to work on the child's confidence and make the child secure. And one of the points that Sir said is, let not your child feel afraid of taking a risk. When a child is introverted and not interacting, a lot comes from this fear that what if I say something wrong? Once you give the confidence to the child, and in one of the strategies Sir mentioned.
Yes, I think you should allow him to take
then
risks, and then
yes.
you make him gradually much better. His personality will improve.
If your classroom environment is safe and secure, if your classroom and you help your child with a peer or make a buddy with your student, then that child will gain confidence, and you give the child's buddy the responsibility that you help your buddy speak up in class, or both of you speak together. There can be various strategies just to make that child feel that, my voice is going to be heard, and I will speak up. Introvert during online teaching is going to be difficult, and I think a quick personal phone call, and teachers don't undermine the sound of your voice because there's so much discussion going on about online and remote. But please remember, the sound of your voice, if that child doesn't have a smartphone or data, will make a world of a difference. That one or two children of yours who don't have a phone line, if you call them once a week and check on them and ask them to study from their textbooks, that would change their world as well. So
They'll feel so nice about it.
yes, yes.
That
Yes,
is.
somebody
Thank you, ma'am.
mentioned call him online separately. So even if he doesn't have data, you can call him on the phone and check on them and guide them and encourage them. I think that would make a big difference. Yeah. Any more questions?
I think we've covered most questions. Apologies, there's a power outage at my place, so I lost connectivity for a few minutes. But thank you so much, once again, Ram sir. Thank you so much, Meenal.
Thank you.
And we absolutely loved the session. Absolutely loved it. And so, Ritika ma'am has a question. Is there any disadvantage of it? That's something that Ram sir has covered previously. Ritika ma'am, the video is going to be there, on our YouTube channel. You can always come back and watch it at your own pace. So we will, the video is always going to be there. So thank you, Meenal. Thank you, Ram. So
Thank
once
you.
again, thank you, everyone. Thank you to all the teachers who joined us live. Do like the video, share this widely in your, with your friends, with your colleagues, so that they too can, know what metacognition is, and this can be leveraged in their classroom, because this is a very, very pertinent topic. So.
Yes.
The feedback form, it's there on my center. We share the link here as well. Please fill that up by 9 p.m. And we look forward to meeting all of you in the next session, which is on Monday. So we have another session coming up. It's not on Thursday, but it's on Monday. So we'll see all of you then. It's about how relationships can be built in an online environment. How effective teacher-student relationships can be built in an online environment. And I'm sure you'd love that session like you loved this. And we look forward to your participation in that. The registrations are, as always, open on my center. You'll also get an emailer from us on the same. So do watch out your mail inbox. Thank you once again,
Thank
and I
you.
hope you all of
Thank you.
thank you, Meenal. All of you have a great evening.
Thank you,
Thank you, thank you, Ram sir.
Thank you, Karthik. Thank you, teachers. Thank you, teachers. We are here because
Thank
you
you
are
for
there.
your lovely compliments. We always enjoy them. Thank you.